Hello everyone. Before we start, I want to ask one interesting question, like, what did you know about the collapse of USSR, especially in Kazakhstan? So today, our team are going to present our video essay, and for our video essay, we decided to choose such an interesting topic related to Kazakhstan. It's the post-Soviet transition and social change in Kazakhstan. Conducting research, we are going to answer our research question. It is how the collapse of USSR affects the Kazakhstan society. So, in answer to this question, can clearly state that our main argument that the collapse of USSR greatly affected all spheres of life, like society and culture, economics and politics. So we are going to describe in details what difficulties Kazakhstans face during this process and during this time. And also we want to describe how Kazakhstan got away from these difficulties and created its own culture with great policies and how it's nowadays work. So next we want to continue with our body paragraphs, and the first it's supporting argument 1. First of all, we want to share with you with social contract theory and cultural change. So Kazakhstan's political identity and evolution is analyzed through social contract theory, which highlighting its shift toward autonomy and public engagement. According to Devinel, cultural policies and national identity promotion have grown alongside with these changes. So the next one, according to the Ibadildin, language and cultural development. Kazakhstan strengthens its identity through language reforms, including the transition from Cyrillic to Latin. And the next one, and the last one, about the global cultural promotion. Kazakhstan boosts its international presence through cultural diplomacy, events, and arts promotion, with youth which playing the key role in the modernizing cultural outreach. Our group decided to conduct a survey on this supporting argument. The main aim of this questionnaire is to search for data such as different opinions, experiences, expertise, and knowledge of people about the effect of the collapse of USSR on the Kazakhstan society. The questionnaire contained 10 questions, 8 of them which were closed-ended and 2 were open-ended. The sample population for this survey included Kimop University students over 18 years of age and residents of the Republic of Kazakhstan. The sample size for this study is 10 people because it is sufficient for undergraduate study. Results and findings. This research project seeks to evaluate people's opinions about the cultural changes in society that occurred as a result of the collapse of USSR to better understand the impact on society. Question 4, see figure 1, asked about the key cultural values and practices that became more or less prominent since the collapse of USSR. 60% of respondents claimed that social norms became more prominent since the collapse of USSR. This is important because it shows that the changes that took place in society greatly affected cultural values. Question 5, see figure 2, asks about how the public perception of the Kazakh language has changed since the collapse of USSR. 80% of respondents claim that public perception of Kazakh language has become more important. This represents the vast majority of respondents and shows strong connection between gaining independence and the revival of national language. This is important because it shows that the collapse of USSR had quite a strong impact on the linguistic situation in Kazakhstan. Question 8, see figure 3, asked about whether the collapse of USSR strengthened or weakened the sense of community and social ties in Kazakhstan. 70% of respondents claimed the collapse of USSR strengthened the sense of community and social ties in Kazakhstan. This represents the vast majority of respondents, and this is important.
Also, on this supporting argument, our team conducted 2 interviews. Having analyzed the received answer in detail, we can clearly identify the main problems and culture changes that occurred in Kazakhstan during the collapse of the USSR. First of all, gaining adoptance and impact on national identity. Professor X argues that after the collapse of the USSR, those people who remained in the country instantly felt that they belonged to the Kazakh nation.
Независимыми. И надо сказать, что все казахстанцы, независимо от того, к какой нации они принадлежат, к титульной нации, которая тогда была представлена даже в меньшинстве, или к другим нациям из всех 130 присутствующих в Казахстане, независимо от этого, все мы ощутили себя казахстанцами. Те, кто не ощутил, они уехали на свою историческую родину. Тогда был отток сильный населения. А кто был казахстанцем по своей сути, не по крови и по происхождению, а именно по сути, остался здесь. Вот я все эти годы живу здесь. И я понимаю, что с тех пор возникла новая такая общность или даже национальная идентификация. Казахстанец.
Kazakh nation. And Professor E claims that considering the national identity that was the key question for Kazakhstan government in 1991. The development of culture identity, the development of national identity, and nation building process.
Republic of Kazakhstan had taken several steps towards this direction. For example, in terms of nation building, and national identity, there were 2-3 major pillars that have been undertaken by the Republic of Kazakhstan in 1990s. For example, to build up some kind of cultural unity among the Kazakhstani citizens around some common idea that would be equally shared by all Kazakhstanis, by all generations of Kazakhstan, because the generational gap is also important here. Some elderly generations were quite nostalgic about the Soviet Union, and some new generation had to be involved in the new nation building process and cultural building, cultural identity building.
Second, the linguistic landscape of Kazakhstan and the use of the Kazakh language in all spheres of life. Professor X and Professor Y agreed on the importance and key role of the Kazakhstan language for the people of Kazakhstan.
Ну, языковая политика Казахстана вполне реальна и адекватна. У нас в Конституции записано, что государственный язык казахский – это правильно. Титульная нация сейчас у нас в большинстве представлена по процентному содержанию разных национальностей в одной общности. Как титульный язык, язык титульной нации, как государственный язык, казахский язык сейчас испытывает такой ренессанс, восстановление, возрождение. На нем вообще производится очень много разных интересных событий. Русский язык остается языком межнационального общения. Он очень признан и используется широко в узусе, то есть в естественной коммуникации. Этот вопрос я тоже...
The linguistic landscape of Kazakhstan has been greatly affected by the post-Soviet period. First of all, it has been affected by the Soviet period greatly, of course. And the post-Soviet period illustrated that the use of Kazakh and Russian language are staying to be still the problems. After 35 years of independence, we still see that as a problem, especially in large cities. Rural areas historically and traditionally are less touched by the problem of Russian speaking and Russification. The urban society, of course, if not equally shares Kazakh and Russian language, that sometimes there are biases towards, let's say, Russian speaking community. In a way, knowledge of 2-3 languages inside the state might be beneficial. We are facing some problematic areas where a number of people are suggesting that it has to be state language, but Russian language also has to have some kind of official status. People might speak whatever language they can understand and communicate.
Third, the revival of religious practice and beliefs in Kazakhstan after independence. Professor X claims that there has been a revival of beliefs and religions and the importance of this.
Ну, конечно, возрождение произошло, потому что при Советском Союзе, при советской власти все мы были воинствующие атеисты. Такое было воспитание, такое было обучение в школах. А теперь многие люди поняли, что они верующие, что они придерживаются какой-то религии. Религия не вредит тому, чтобы быть хорошим человеком, а напротив способствует этому.
In conclusion of this survey, we can clearly identify the interesting topics and issues that related to collapse of USSR in Kazakhstan, such as the revival of cultural values and national language, the strengthening of a sense of community and social ties, and also general opinion about the cultural changes that have taken place.
So, moving to the economic side of this transition, Kazakhstan had its own difficulties as a new and a young country. After Kazakhstan gained its independence in 1991 from Soviet Union, they immediately changed the economy from a planet to a market. In early 1990s, Kazakhstan economy went down because they were hardly dependent on the infrastructures of USSR. And also, Kazakhstan started a rapid privatization, but it was managed very bad. So many buildings and enterprises were sold off, and it led to the big amount of corruption. Because of a big amount of corruption, inflation level in the country increased, and it led to the economy decrease. Despite the fact of Kazakhstan's economy, there were other difficulties that was associated with the citizens of Kazakhstan. Citizens that time experienced job losses and inflation rate on themselves. The sudden shift to a market economy led to the collapse of the old currency and to the devaluation of new currency. According to the statistics that was provided by Doctor of Economics Rashid Karenov, starting from the 1991 and 1995, unemployment rate was over 2 million people, and over 130 enterprises have stopped their work. In 1994, the industrial decline has reached 28%. Also, there were other stuff like price increase to the products, inflation rates that reached till 2000%. So that meant there were no warm, heat, and gas on the houses. Kazakhstan had difficulties in the economical field after collapse, and to get opinion of citizens about this occasion, there was taken survey. And firstly about the participants' age. 20% were people over 45 years of age. 10% were people over 25 and 34 age. 70% were young people over 18 and 24 age old. According to these results, it shows that 20% people of the survey will share honest opinion about economical difficulties of that time, because they experienced it, and other 10 and 70% just shares opinion according to the history of our country. Moving to the next part of survey, Kazakhstan's transition from a planet economy to a market economy. Results show that 50% of participants agree that this transition was necessary, but process itself was difficult to benefit the country. 30% of participants agree that this transition brought the country more harm than good. Other 20% of participants agree that this transition still needs more time and major reforms, because it's incomplete. The next part of survey about the biggest challenge for ordinary people during Kazakhstan's economic transition in the 1990s. As the result shows, 80% of participants agree that the biggest challenge was of citizens' job loss and economic instability. Other 20% and 20% agree that rising prices and inflation, the unequal distribution of wealth and opportunities were biggest challenges of 1990s. According to the survey about economical part, which was taken among the residents of Kazakhstan, and most of them were young residents, the result shows that to build a good economy in that time was a hard and a struggle process that required much time and sacrifice. All the survey questions and answers they complement each other, making them biggest challenge of 1990s for the Kazakhstan. But for nowadays, Kazakhstan's economy is much better than before. But nevertheless, problems like corruption and inflation still exist.
According to the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan, citizens are guaranteed fundamental political and civil rights. For example, Article 22 ensures freedom of conscience, while Article 23 guarantees right to freedom of association. However, despite these constitutional guarantees, international organizations have raised concerns about the country's human rights situation. Freedom House gave Kazakhstan 5 out of 40 points for political rights and 18 out of 60 for civil liberties, classifying the country as not free. A Chatham House report points out that authorities often ignore both international agreements and their own laws when it comes to political and civil freedoms. Elections are manipulated and freedom of the press and speech is limited. Although dissent is tolerated to some extent, critics risk criminal prosecution. The right to peacefully assembly and association is tightly controlled, leading to arrests of activists and pressure on NGOs, labor unions, and religious groups. The judicial system is also frequently used for political purposes. The research reveals improvements since independence but demonstrated that Kazakhstan deals with multiple major obstacles today. The general public acknowledges better freedoms and democratic reforms, yet the country faces big problems because of economic struggles and corruption, alongside inequality issues. The Soviet heritage continues to shape present-day realities, while young people hold essential value for future development.
In conclusion, our research effectively answered the main question of our topic. How did the collapse of USSR affect in society Kazakhstan? And supported our central argument that the collapse significantly influenced all areas of public life, social, economical, and political. From the cultural perspective, we found that the post-Soviet reveal national identity in Kazakhstan. The Kazakh language was re-emphasized and culture renewed, and there was strengthening of community and social peace.
Politically, Kazakhstan experienced a shift in a system of values. The moves democracy brought greater freedoms and reforms, but trust in institutions remained fragile. Many institutes recognize improved sign independence, but also note continued issues like corruption, unequal access to opportunities, and their lingering in-sync structures. Overall, our findings show that the collapse of USSR was returning full Kazakhstan, deeply affecting to voice, think, engage with their nation. This size only relevant on Kazakhstan, but also informed our understanding of transition in other post-Soviet society.